No.
He goes by sir.
He was nice.
All right. I call Personnel, Veterans, and Human Services to order at 6:15. Members of my committee are Council Waterman and Council Blair. All right. First, we're going to have Nancy Heath of the applying for the Board of Assessors. We're going to have her come up and talk with us. Thank you, Nancy. And if you can give your name and address, and that
Need
would
to be
be
a little
great.
taller, I think. I'm Nancy McGuire Heath. My last name is a double name, and I live at 31 3rd Street in Attleboro. I've lived here since 1985.
All right, and yes, if you want to just go right into
Okay.
your experiences.
I will talk a little bit about the questions that were posed to me. I don't know if you have a copy, so I'll just go through it. I was asked what experience and skills I have that I feel would help make me a good candidate for this position, and I understand the role of the assessor. I have met with members of the assessment board and met with Julie. I am very conscious of careful and ethical and thoughtful decision-making that's needed for this position. I've been an educator for 47 years and a school administrator for 37, so I've had to make hard decisions. I am approaching retirement and have been thinking hard about how I wanted to give back to the city that I love, and this seemed like a position that I felt I could make a difference without necessarily being in the public eye, which is not what I'm interested in. So I'm really impressed with Julie when I met with her, and I thought this is somebody I can work well with, and I was impressed with her approach, her honesty. She was very authentic when we spoke, and I was very impressed with that. So I didn't want to be putting myself in a position where I'd be working with somebody I wasn't comfortable with, and I felt we could work very well together. So my biggest issues are fairness and equity. I understand the roles of this group. I know that many of these decisions that the Board of Assessors signs off on affect people's personal lives very closely, and so I think it's important that somebody be committed to thinking hard about decisions and looking carefully at the different appeals that come before us. I'm a parent of 2 adult sons, both products of the Attleboro schools, and who are both following very satisfying professional careers thanks to Attleboro schools. They had great relationships, as did I, with Attleboro educators. I've served on a number of boards. You may or may not have been around when we had Fair 94, which was looking hard at reviving downtown. I served on that. I was their representative to the Bristol County Board of Tourism. I have served on the ARA, the Redevelopment Authority. When I left my position, Mayor Dumas very smartly put Judy Robbins in my position, and you know what she and that team were able to accomplish. So I feel like, I was part of setting the stage for that, although I didn't carry out those great things. I've served on several nonprofit groups, Big Brothers Big Sisters in town on the board, Board of Child Care Center in town, and I was an active member of the League of Women Voters. I was a moderator remember when we used to have all those debates here in town that were moderated by the League? I was one of those moderators. I'm currently an elder at Community Covenant Church right over the line in Rehoboth, and I work for the state of Rhode Island currently until this coming July, when I will leave after 47 years in education. So that's who I am, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Well, I spoke to Julie, and she was very impressed with you and comes highly recommended, and I think we all think a lot of Julie here, around here too as well. I'm excited to have you part of this. Councilor DeSimone.
Thank you, Mike. Nancy, first of all, welcome. Thank you for your prior service and your offer to continue that service. You're already good to go in my mind because you said 2 very important words, which were fairness and equity, which is exactly how we should approach all municipal and government business.
Agreed.
So I'm happy to have you. So thank you for stepping up, and I look forward to seeing what you're going to do on the Board of Assessors.
Great.
Councilor Blair.
Thank you for volunteering. You're going to work with a great person in that office. I know you've met with her, but
Am I right? It's an all-woman office?
yeah, I don't think, yeah.
No, oh, you'll be with, there's Don Smith?
No, I mean the office
The
itself.
office itself,
Work
yeah.
with Julie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's an all-woman.
I was
staff.
looking on the website and I thought, I think they're all women.
Yeah, they are. And it's a great group, and Julie's absolutely super.
She seemed really,
She's excellent when
Yeah.
constituents come up or got a problem. She's really makes them feel at ease, which is nice in a
it's
government
important.
office.
Mhm.
So, good luck, and I'm sure you're gonna do fine, and it's good to have you aboard.
Just one more claim to fame. I babysat this young man for many, many years.
I wouldn't put that out there. I wouldn't put that out there. That kid's never grown up.
Wait, now I have questions.
Any other questions? Oh, Todd's going to grill me.
Council Waterman and
Well, I was
Council Cobus.
going to give Councilor Cobus a chance to respond.
I've obviously known Nancy for a couple years, and in a position like this where the decisions and fairness is incredibly important, I can't speak enough to her character and morals and all of that. Like, we're incredibly lucky to have somebody of this caliber to volunteer for this position. So I strongly endorse and support Nancy for this role.
Council Waterman, do you have any questions about Council Cobus and being a babysat?
Oh, well. So this is terrific. We have been looking for somebody to fill that position for some time. I really thank you so much. It's a tremendously important position.
Yeah, I agree.
My experience, I've had the experience of having seniors call me who might have had an appliance break, and that appliance cost what their payment was going to be, and we've had to go occasionally to people in this position that you're going into to say, what can we work out? And I'm sure that'll happen again. And
It's
that
about
one-
being flexible and really listening.
Yeah, and when you said the equity and in fairness, that's part of what it is, you know? And we're all trying to pull together to be able to pay for what the city needs to have.
I imagine this year, with the economy the way it is, we'll get a lot of appeals that we might not have gotten, a year or two ago. Things are tight out there, so
Yeah, so thank you.
you're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you very much, Nancy, and you will, I'm sure you will be hearing or getting an email in the mail, and you would come down and get sworn in by the city clerk's department, and you'll be good to go, and
My understanding, I have to pass an exam. I have to take a course and pass an exam.
You know
that's-
how to study?
I do. And so do I have to do that before, or that gets done after I'm,
That gets done after, I'm
After.
pretty sure.
okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Take it easy.
Okay, from the docket of October 4th, 2022, entertain a motion to approve expending of such funds and any future grant amendments regarding $18,884.57 grant from Bristol Elder Services to fund COA part-time outreach position. Additionally, transfer $3,332.57 from 112-41000-578300 citywide reserve fund for transfer to account 112-41000-599 200 citywide transfer to grant, and further transfer $3,332.57 to account 233-8M4-49700 Bristol Elders COA Outreach Municipal Division.
Second.
All right, motion's in order. This will help with exercise classes, computer classes, phone classes, personnel classes. And obviously, this is something that's a great for the Council on Aging, and we appreciate this. So, any questions, anybody?
No, it's sorely needed.
Yeah, definitely. All right, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. From the docket of October 4th, 2022, I entertain a motion to approve expending of such funds and any future grant amendments regarding the $4,600 and $15 grant from Bristol Elder Services to the COA for a new initiative called Mind and Body Incorporating Technology and Exercise Classes. Additionally, the mayor requests a transfer of $814.50 from 112-41000-578-300 citywide reserve fund for transfer to account 112-41000-599-200 citywide transfer to grant, and further transfer $814.50 to account 2337M4-499700 Bristol Elder COA Mind and Body.
Second.
Motion's in order. This is also, will be helping with a part-time outreach worker. That group down there is straight out, and this is going to be much needed for them, for the Council on Aging. Any other questions?
No.
All right. Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. From the docket of September 6th, 2022, I entertain a motion to approve the appointment of Nancy McGuire Heath, 31 3rd Street, Attleboro, to fill an unexpired term on the Board of Assessors, term to expire February 2024.
Second.
Motion's in order. And we just, 2 minutes ago, we just heard Nancy. Obviously, she's going to be a wonderful asset to the Board of Assessors, and I think we're going to be lucky to have her. So any other questions? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. All right, that's it for Personnel, Veterans, and Human Services. I call to adjourn.
Second.
All right, motion's in order. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned at 6:27.
And we see you wait 3 minutes before the next one.
Thanks, Todd. order at 6:30. So tonight, we have two guests. We have Superintendent Mike Tyler and State Rep Jim Hawkins. And you'll see on your desk, you have pictures of the slides they'll be presenting tonight. And so I guess we can start with Mike. So this is just a little overview of or we'll start with Jim. So I'm sure you've all heard about, all the issues that we have in the South Ave area. And again, so this is just preliminary. This is nothing set in stone as of yet. So they're going to speak a little bit. Obviously, Rep. Hawkins will speak regarding the state efforts, and then Superintendent Tyler regarding Attleboro. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for inviting me and being precise about the time.
Listen, 15 minutes can make or break a meeting.
I don't want to use up Mike's time. That's not fair, because he's put a lot of work into this, and I have not. The reason for me speaking first is the context. The South Ave proposal is obviously city streets, so that's the reason in front of City Council and the reason Mike is presenting it. But this has been coming for a long time. When I was first elected to office, I got questions about why can't we do something about what was then Exit 3. And apparently, there was some expectation that they would have to deal with traffic for the Ides Hill Industrial Park, so nobody ever did anything with it for the longest time. And when I asked, it's a huge crash zone. Of course they're interested. I worked with Mike. We brought out as the safety committee. They thought we staged it because the traffic is so chaotic there. And it's been through a lot of iterations since then. I definitely don't want to take up Mike's time on this. So the context of the improvements to South Ave is the context of what happens at Exit 4, which is absolutely crazy, where that ramp comes in by the Shell station. Absolutely crazy. The state's interest is they want a whole corridor that you can drive through safely. Nice if it looks nice, but safely. You can drive through from the other side of the bridge through to County Square without a lot of chaos. The point that changed things where actually we could start on this work and the state could start on this work was the traffic light at Rathbun Willard, because that's changing the traffic patterns. That's actually the shorter way to get to West Street, much shorter way to get to the high school, Rome Boulevard. And as people get used to that, that's going to change the traffic patterns. And now it's worth it for the state to proceed with this. Mike will talk more about the details with the state's efforts on the planning. They're coordinating with the city using the same contractors, so we won't be duplicating efforts. It's not decided yet. The worst part of that ramp system is where Exit 3 North from 95 North merges in front of the Shell station. People get off there, they want to cross 4 lanes of traffic to get to the Shell station or Lathrop. They can't see oncoming traffic. It's just problem-ridden. The most likely solution to that, although it depends how this fits with what's happening on South Ave, it's not definite yet. The most likely they would tee that off, just as like the next exit up by Shaw's and Toner Boulevard. So instead of using a ramp, it would come to a traffic light, and you'd have to stop. You'd be protected from oncoming traffic. You could see, there's a crest of a hill there. You could see oncoming traffic, and you could also turn left and go towards South Attleboro, which is a little tricky right now because you can't see traffic coming down from the Shell station. And it moves the joining of that traffic several hundred feet away from the Shell station. So just by that alone will change the way traffic flows, and the state's interest is in coordinating with the city so it creates one long corridor. Most recently in the news, there were a couple horrible accidents on the other side of the bridge. At one point, that's not as high a crash area as by the Shell station, but I've talked to them, and they're going to. It was already included in this study, but they're going to give it extra importance. There aren't as many accidents there, but merged traffic is coming through under the highway at 50 miles an hour, coming off the highway at the ramp at 60, 70 miles an hour, and 3 lanes are merging into one. So there's not as many crashes, but when there are, there's doozies. So this is all study that's being done on the state side rather, is my reason for introducing it. But I want to give almost all the time to. I'll stay in case there's questions at the end, but give almost all the time to Mike, because he has the presentation, the part that you'll be more involved in because it's on the city side.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Hawkins, for being a true advocate for this project. I just want to break off for 1 second and just give you a quick update. Rathbun Willard, all the final equipment was installed at the end of last week. We've been able to go out there for a couple of days and start looking at the traffic patterns a little bit more. The first adjustments were made today, so now we got to see what those adjustments lead to. So we're in that stage. We're in that 30-day window right now that I talked about from the beginning of this project.
All equipment, including the new cameras?
Everything.
Oh, great.
Yeah, everything.
Oh,
So
it's going to be longer. Thank you.
we're in a good place, but now the 30-day window starts clicking in. So again, the first ones were made today. So we're hoping to see what that actually produced. I think it's going to be positive, but I do say to the city council, it's not going to take us just one time. It's going to take us 3 or 4 times to get it right. So bear with us, and I'll keep you updated.
Thank you.
So as Representative Hawkins was alluding to, this project, the South Avenue Parkway, has been on my agenda for about 4 years. It was put on the back burner once the new high school was voted in by the taxpayers, and the city has an immediate need to do some type of improvements at Rappin Road Drive and Thatcher. So we kind of took our eyes off it for a while, and Representative Hawkins has been an advocate to the state, making sure it's still on their radar. The important part that he was alluding to when it comes to the city part is the state is extremely interested in working with us on this project, actually piggybacking it on their Exit 3 improvement project, just like they did on 123 in Norton, where the state did the 495 work. They also gave a lot of the funding for all that work to be done on 123. So when they talk free money, we certainly want to listen to them, and we certainly want to keep our hands out. And I want everybody to just keep a very open mind on this. We did have a public hearing about 4 years ago, not a public hearing. We had a meeting with the neighbors at the Attleboro Library. Because of the time of year, it wasn't as productive as a meeting as we wanted to. But still, some residents were able to put some of their concerns out there to us. So even though the meeting didn't go off as well as we had liked, we were still able to gather some information from that and devise it into the plans. So the state has advised us. Exit 3 is probably about 3 to 5 years away before that's actually going to be from start to completion on that. So we have a lot of time to think about this project and make sure we get it right. So again, the state only likes to put their money into very positive projects. If there's a negative vibe from the city, of a majority, whatever, they will not take this project on in any way, shape, or form. There's too many municipalities that have projects waiting out there. The good part for Attleboro was we were able to put the plan in. They met in September for the Transportation Improvement Program. And those of you that are familiar with it actually know that that program right now is booked solid until 2026. But they still wanted us to get on there immediately. So it was on there in September. And the caveat is for that, if one of those other jobs that's on there, the current list for the TIP, is not deemed worthy, or the resident downstream, that money becomes available. So that's when we as a city have to start attending the Serpent meetings, since we're in the larger metropolis group, if you will, and we gather those funds for this project. So very good news. It's always nice to spend somebody else's money on. I got big dreams, and everybody actually says that. They're like, why don't you just rest for a little while? You just get done one project. But I think we really need something happening down here. I think it's kind of like a gateway into the city, if you will, coming off the ramp. It's 63 feet of open road and sidewalk. It's just conductive to speed. That's all it's conductive to. As Representative Hawkins stated, there's 7 type of accidents that happen right in that area on a daily basis, weekly basis, whatever. So I would like to really shine the light on it, but again, I want to everybody keep their minds open to it. So I gave you the conceptions. I'm going to leave these boards up here. I'll take them back to the yard tomorrow with me. Gives you a little bit more visual than the smaller pictures that you have. But what does it entail? It entails putting some type of center island from Lathrop Street all the way down to Snell Street. What that island looks like is going to be totally up to us. There could be something you see in the pictures. It's grass and trees. There's plenty type of different configurations that we can do. There could be drought resistant. There's all type of avenues that we take. Do we want to put lighting on it? Do we not want to improve lighting? All things that will work out. So the main reason I came for you tonight is I was also asked by the state something about 2 years ago For them to do their improvements on exit 3 and for us on this project, we all know that Lathrop Street is right where the state layout ends and where the city picks up. They asked me to approach the city council at that time to see what they would think about having Lathrop Street being a no left turn turns in, no left turn turns out. I told them at that time I wasn't comfortable bringing it to you because I think that was kind of putting the cart way ahead of the horse. But I think it's something now we need to at least think of. It's something they'd be willing to work with us on a temporary basis where they just put the large orange reflectors across for now to see what the reaction is. Both the chief of police and fire chief, I approached them about it a couple of years ago. They had no concerns about blocking that off, to seeing how it works because of the way they respond to that area on an emergency. So it's something we need to seriously think about. And why do we need to seriously think about it? Because it'll change the whole configuration of the island. I think it's one of those situations where we're saying to the state, well, it's actually in your layout. And they say, well, we don't want to go anything beyond our layout without the city's approval because it's a rural street. So I think it's one of those where nobody wants to raise their hand and say, we made that decision. They'd probably rather see it done collaboratively. It would mean some big changes in people's driving patterns. But again, I think they're more worried about safety being number 1, convenience probably being number 7 or 8 down on the board. So just something to think about, what your thoughts are, initial thoughts about it. If it's something we want to proceed with, that would have to be city council approval. The changing of a roadway pattern or whatever. You guys have the full authority on that. The design of the center island, again, I want everybody to stay open-minded, bring some ideas. If you go into another community that has some type of these configurations, you see something that really looks appealing or, kind of jots out, then, pass me a note. A couple city councils already have in the last couple of weeks on a couple things. One of the biggest concerns we had when we first presented this was where do the breaks in the islands go? That's a huge concern, and it's a rightful concern. As you're going to see on one of the pages that I had the maps on, if you actually look at that, I got one of the streets that's actually highlighted in pink. Well, that's Davis Circle, I believe, and it's a dead end. So when you're looking at these configurations, that street really stands out, because now what do you do for those residents if they're coming down from County Square, which was brought to my attention by a very alert city council. And so it's right. So these brakes have to be put in 2 ways. They got to be engineered to deal with the proper traffic flow so cars can actually turn and go back to the left as a designated area. They have to be put in a, I should say, an emergency areas, if you will. The police and fire need to we have to make sure that they agree where these cutouts are going to be. So we highlighted all those roads because we're not just looking at South Ave. We're looking at all the Pattersons, all that stuff in the back. It's very important, just as well as the short side of Thatcher Street. These are all important. It doesn't do us any good putting this project in, and all we did was make their life absolutely miserable. We're not trying to do that. But again, it doesn't do us any good to have brakes at every single street either, because then that leaves us with the same configuration we currently have. So again, I don't want to take too much of your time. Again, I've asked you to keep an open mind. Any suggestions, concerns that you hear, let me know. We're in the very initial stages of this. We have a couple of years to deal with it. Hopefully the state will get our funding, which will make us all be much happier. It'll be an expensive job. We do feel that it'd probably take a little bit over the year. That's just the conception that I've shown you right there. If there was actually lighting put in the center and stuff like that, where you're running conduit, all that, we want to put, if you want to put water retention areas on there because of the drought resistance, so we'd have a watering source for the trees. Those would all kind of add to the timeline. But again, I just wanted everybody on the city council to be aware because there's going to be talk moving forward. And I want to make sure that everyone here at least knows the initial talk. So.
I was going to raise my hand. It's my committee. Let me just. So when it comes to the brakes, I know you and I discussed it, and it's definitely convoluted, right? Because you have people coming from County Square, you have people coming from South Attleboro, and depending on where you want to turn and where you're going. Would that be something that we would hire anybody to do, or is that our decision to do? Like, do we need to hire an engineer to?
An engineer will design the whole thing.
Okay.
So
And that'll
when I
be-
say engineered, I mean, the breaks have to be put in strategically. You know, we have to do the concerns, like I said, the dead-end street, the emergency vehicle access, what the new traffic pattern looks like. It's really, I don't think it's shown its full face yet until the high school's 100% complete, and the fields are put in the back, and the buses are actually going their own ways now, because right now they're only going in off of Bushy Street, and so I think all of that's gonna decide where those breaks go. And the public, I mean, I said we need to keep it positive, so if there's a really huge pushback and we can accommodate it, I think we have to keep our ears open to that.
No, I mean, I think we can keep it positive. I mean, it's a dangerous road, and I can't imagine that there's anybody, I mean, I used to live up there, can't imagine that there would be anybody that would disagree with that. And obviously, we want to make it for our residents, we don't want to make their lives horrible, but like you said, convenience is like 6 or 7 on the list, and safety is the first. So one more, and then I'll get to Council Cobus. How long do you think we have to get it together and stay on the state's radar and stay on their list and make sure we have it together in time for when they're ready?
I think
Like,
that's a
can we
great question.
accomplish that? Can we be prepared and be ready to go the minute they're like, here's the money, we're gonna start?
We're gonna try to wrap this all up within a year and a half from so we're ready. We're sitting there with shovel-ready plans that have been approved by this city council, the mayor, the majority of the residents in the area. You're right, we do wanna have it ready.
Right.
The TIP program kinda doesn't work like that. If we were just to say to them that we have an initial plan, they're actually good with that at this stage because they're gonna be involved in this too. Anytime we're using state money, as we all know, you have to use a complete street process, okay? That means the bike lanes, everything comes into a full effect. And what you alluded to is very, true. Right now, the size of the lanes on South Ave, the new rule of thumb is the travel lane's only supposed to be 11 to 12 feet wide maximum. So it kind of, you feel like you're being tight. And that's what the feeling you're supposed to have. So our plan is to have it in a year and a half. But making sure that we have enough public hearings and neighborhood meetings to make sure we're all on the same page.
Great.
Something else I'd add to what Mike said is that they purposely wanted to use the same consultant as DPW is using. So they're not two consultants not
Good.
working
Great.
with the same.
Right.
All right, thank you. Council Cobus?
Thank you, Councilor Dolan. And I think you asked the same question that I was asking about what are the next steps from our side, and is there, in a question for Representative Hawkins, is there anything we can do on the state side to try to accelerate the process, especially with the most recent accidents? And with everybody being aware of just how dangerous this is, now that the high school's there, is there anything we can do to try to accelerate this?
I'll say MassDOT's not like MBTA. They're much easier to work with, much more straightforward, easy communication. I would say MassDOT is not like MBTA. They're much easier to work with, much better communication. You can make a phone call, somebody picks up the phone and tells you what's going on. So for both of us, through different avenues, just to stay on top of it and keep in the loop with them will go a long way.
Okay. Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't know who was next. Was it Councilor Blair?
I don't know.
Go ahead,
I
Councilor
got
Blair.
a short one. Mike, the engineering part, how soon can you start that? So we're on board with the definite
Sure.
plan.
So we already have, Peter.
Oh, okay.
We signed an initial design contract with Beta Engineering, I believe it was 2 weeks ago.
Oh, good.
They did the initial stuff like this for us for free, but I think, as we all know, companies only do so much work for free before they say, well, now it's time to flip. So we do have one right now. That'll give us the initial design. It gives us actually something to bring to people to talk about and start debating the merits of the whole project.
Oh, that's great, Mike. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Council Dolan. Yeah, I have just a quick question for Representative Hawkins and then one for Mike. Rep. Hawkins, for what it's worth, I would love to advocate for a light on the southbound exit as well.
That's the likely solution.
Okay, good.
If they do it, that would, same on either side, just like the exit on Toner
Because although
Boulevard.
the accidents may be on the
Because
sides,
that would,
problematic.
and they could actually close for B. They wouldn't need that. They would just have the, because there's also a problem on the highway with the weave, because the exit and the entrance are too close together. So that would solve a couple problems beyond the crazy accidents. But no, it would come to a T with a traffic light. And they haven't done that yet, but that would be the likely solution. That's what they have talked about in the past.
Awesome. Thank you for your advocacy on that. And Mike, thank you. I'm super excited. You and I have spoke about this project. I'm super excited that you're moving it forward. I support it wholeheartedly. Certainly the safety is the primary concern, but this is a central entranceway to the city. I think it says a lot to the people who come here for their first time or every day about how the city views itself, how we view our population, and how we view our visitors. So I just think even from an economic development perspective, this project is valuable on so many levels, safety being number one, absolutely, but even having spoke to Catherine Farrick, even from an economic development level, I wholeheartedly support it. Anything I can do to help this move along in a positive way. The conversation about the left on Lathrop is an interesting one, and I have to say right now I'm leaning towards it, but I'm going to wait for the data from the new traffic light to see where we land on that. But I have 2 teens who are driving, and every time they head down South Ave, I give them the same warning. That's the #1 traffic accident spot in the city or the state, and be careful. So anything we can do to make that stretch road safer for my kids and everybody else who drives on it. So thank you for your work on this, and you got my support all the way.
And thank you. And I think you brought up a great point that I kind of missed, and I was trying to keep the presentation short. So when you put an application to be on the transportation improvement plan, the application itself involves the planning department, involves the economic director. And so Gary and Catherine both came down with to sit with the engineering company, and we had like a 90-page application. These are all what they call points on the program. So the more points that we can answer, how, not only is it a traffic control, it actually has economic values, it actually has, planning values. It has areas where we're serving both elderly, low income, 3 levels of school. I mean, these are all big bonus points for a project like this. So you're absolutely right. It's vital, and that's why I would say we're always open to changes, but I do think we still want to keep it aesthetically pleasing too. We certainly don't want to put stamped brick in the middle of the road and say, oh, that's good enough. I don't think that's the answer either. I think we need to keep aesthetics absolutely involved in it. Thank you.
Council Bennett.
Thank you. Looking at the maps and the schematics here, it looks like the city side of the project would end right at Lathrop, and then the state piece kind of takes over from here. And I understand there's a very intentional process to loop these 2 projects in together, to link them, and to make some kind of cohesive solution to that circle, if you will. That's sort of like the red zone, right? Looking at lots of different places now, I'm super aware, and I watch what happens when you're coming off of highway exits in different locations. And I've seen a number of different potential solutions here, so I assume that there'll be conversations with the state, with MassDOT, to look at potential solutions, whether that be some kind of a traffic circle or a rotary to keep traffic moving, or if it's some kind of other solution with stop signs or no left turns, whatever that might be. To what extent do we, as the city, have an input in that part of the process with MassDOT to look at that circle, if you will, there in that danger zone where the 2 projects will come together?
A lot. There'll be a public hearing. I'm going to say a year, but there'll be a public hearing. And bless them, I've been to these before, and they do listen. So they are very interested in public comments.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Public city comments, yes.
Absolutely.
Plus, there's ongoing communication too. It's not like we're in a vacuum. They're wonderful to work with.
Okay, thank you.
And if I could piggyback on that, yes, there'll be numerous public hearings on this project because actually it involves federal highway too. The last thing they would allow to happen is traffic to back up onto 95. So there's many angles they're going to look at it. But you do bring up a point that I missed too, trying to rush the presentation when I talked about Lathrop Street. Even though the state has not having any type of, they're still working on their conceptual plan of what Exit 3 is going to look like. But But the reason for Lathrop Street is important to them is because if we don't change it in any way, shape, or form, they need to put a traffic signal over there. Traffic signals cost a lot of money, number one, and then you have to have a lot of coordination now with the exit 3. So I think in reality, you're not only seeing one traffic light, there's a possibility you're gonna see 2 traffic lights at that intersection in a very short span, which always causes logistical problems. So we will work together on all this stuff, and that's why I think some of the decisions are gonna become, have to become a little bit earlier than what we want on this, just so people can actually start getting their initial plans out there and what they want to do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anybody
I would
else
say
have-
that's the reason Mike wanted to make this presentation, so that there be steady communication back and forth.
Does anybody else have any questions? All right, well, thank you both for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you. From the docket of October 4th, 2022, I entertain a motion to transfer $3,856.92 from account 1124100-578300 Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to account 1650100-5211010 Park Heat to replenish funds used to repair the DEF exhaust sensor on the John Deere roadside mower tractor.
Second.
Thank you. Pretty self-explanatory. We're just replenishing funds that was used for something else. Does anybody have any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. From the docket of October 4th, 2022, I entertain a motion to transfer $6,276 from account 1124100-578300 Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to account 1650100-521010 Park Heat to replenish funds used to repair the irrigation well pump at Capron Park.
Second.
Thank you. Same as the above. Does anybody have any questions? We're just replenishing funds used for something else. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. From the docket of September 6, 2022, I move to approve the request from National Grid to install a new 40-foot pole at 209 Pleasant Street to feed a new commercial customer.
Second.
Thank you. That customer is the new Taco Bell that's going in. Does anybody have any questions?
Council Dolan, am I misremembering, or did the National Grid guy say it was actually on?
You know
Perry?
what? When I read that, so now I need to go back on my old
Yes.
paperwork.
Yeah, it's on Perry, I believe, actually.
Yeah, that's correct.
Let me find out what number Perry that is. I don't know. off the top of my
Laura,
head.
there's no house there anymore. It goes right,
No.
it goes right into the
But the
industrial
pole,
park.
right, the pole is on Perry, not Pleasant.
Right, that's what he said.
And I had corrected it on my other paperwork, but I don't have that in front of me.
This is the service address that it'll be servicing.
So I can put it, well, no, because I
Yeah.
need to put it through as a location,
Yeah, but I think we can get it to full council and just,
and then we can just do it as a Scrivener's error.
we're just,
Can we vote
I would
on it?
amend it before the full council, but
All right, so we'll just vote it out like this, and I'll amend it, when we get to the full council. So I'm sorry, that was Council Blair that gave me the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. I'd like to adjourn at 6:58.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned at 6:58, thank you.
I would like to put off the license committee for a little bit later, because Richard, you have guests here, do I?
I do.
Why don't you go next?
Thank you. I'd like to call the Finance Committee meeting at 6:58. I have two, sitting on this committee is Councilor Reynolds and Councilor Copes. I have two guests here on the last motion in your package from the docket of October 4th, 2022, request for the Treasurer, Auditor, and Director of Finance to appear in front of the Finance Committee on September 27th for updates.
second.
Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion's in order. All in favor say aye.
aye.
Thank you. It's not actually a motion, but we'll say that it passed unanimously. Welcome. I asked the Director of Finance, the Auditor and Treasurer to appear tonight because we have been working for the past 2 months. I've been working for the last 3 months on a document that is to be called Financial Policies of the City of Attleboro. This is a result of our budget message that we sent to the administration, but it's important that the council understand that this is an activity that's outside of the purview of the responsibilities of the council. It was right for us to put it in a budget message because it was something we wanted to see from the administration, but we don't really have any jurisdiction in executing the policy. That is completely up to the administration. So to further the progress on the budget message, I conducted a lot of preliminary research so that I could have an intelligent conversation with the treasurer and the auditor, and then take what we learned from that step to the director of finance so that the director of finance could finalize the financial policies. It's really the director of finance's policy authorship. I will say that this is a very positive move for the city of Attleboro because the city of Taunton just gained a Standard & Poor rating of AA+, which is the top 25% of the 351 cities and towns in the Commonwealth. I'm not saying that the city of Attleboro has the opportunity of getting a Standard & Poor's rating of AA+ as a result of doing these financial policies, but it is a very positive a step in the right direction. So I want to publicly thank both the treasurer and the auditor for sitting down and spending time with me and contributing to the program. And I'm going to ask Jeremy, the director of finance, to please come to the podium and explain in further detail what we have here as a result of the budget message.
Excellent. Thank you, Councillor. Jeremy Stoll, Director of Budget Administration. Councillor Conti took most of my intro. So this is an administrative document in nature. I view this, I believe in a similar way the council does, in providing sort of guidelines that transcend political administrations, both on the council and upstairs. It's not to say we should fund this one thing over another thing. That's not what this document is. What this document is a guiding set of principles, both in somewhat light on procedure by intent, and then setting, what it is that we do as a city of Attleboro, and the upper and lower bounds on some points, the legal parameters we're in other points. And this is something that the rating agency S&P Global has been asking about, and we had it loosely defined in some capacity, more articulate in other ones. And I thought it was important, even outside of the council's budget message, which I was happy to see it there. I thought it was important that we sit down and from a financial perspective, and I hope to have this in sort of a more operational, procedural document, not for council presentation, but for continuity of service within departments as we move forward. So this is a policy document. We're going to come up with some procedure documents in a little bit. 2 points before I get into the actual document. One, this is in draft form. I sent a draft to Councilor Conti on Friday. I also sent it to City Auditor and City Treasurer, and we reviewed together their comments today. So the draft I have as of a couple hours ago is different than in small regard to the one that I initially drafted. So this is, you'll see in here, and as we get further along, we'll distribute it, but you'll see in here there's lots of, strive, make efforts to the greatest extent possible, all sorts of things like that, because this is not as cut and fast prescriptive as, say, a state statute or a local ordinance. This is an approach. Also on the AA+ rating, if some of you may have seen in my office, once I moved to the opposite side of the floor, I put a little Post-it on my what's it called? Board. About a week after I put in, that says AA plus FY24. So this, as the council alluded to, is not what gets us over that threshold, but it, I think, is necessary for us to get there. So it's something that we're working towards. So I just want to go through a little bit about the policies that are contained in here. And again, this is working in draft form, and before I would submit a final form to municipal council for your review. Again, it's administrative in nature, but I'll continue working with the city auditor and city treasurer to refine this. So in the budget message for fiscal 23, the policies requested were use of free cash to balance the budget, policy for stabilization fund levels, policy for debt service, for user fees and reviewing and recurring reviews of user fees, a couple of labor ones. Yeah, so those were the finance-related ones. So this is an 11-page document. It's not a tome, but I'll read you part of my intro here. It's we're committed to safeguarding public funds, protecting local assets, and complying with all applicable financial standards and regulations. So they're intended to be objectives, provide direction, and help ensure sound fiscal stewardship and financial management practices that span mayoral administrations and municipal council composition. And we'll review these as we deem necessary. So whether there are changes in law, whether there are material changes in, our revenue makeup and our, what we do as a city, as our parameters change, we'll come back and review these. So some of the things I have in here, balanced budget policy. So in my procedure part, I define what the budget shall include at a minimum. So again, spanning administrations, what we should expect to see in a budget message, discussion on revenues, trends, breakdown of local receipts, education, narratives, line by line, personnel budgets. Just so as personnel changes, that this is how we do things as the city of Attleboro. Balanced budget policy, recurring expenditures are paid for by recurring revenues. It says that a couple ways up and down. Our revenue policy, it says to make sure that we are complying with Proposition 2.5 and all the other applicable statutes, but that we take a reasonable approach to local receipts. And there is some discussion on what reasonability means. But we don't want to be overly rosy in our local receipts, and I'm especially sensitive to this because the municipal council does not vote on the level of local receipts. This is something which the administration presents an expenditure budget to you all, and we come up with the revenue side of the budget in a way that will get our tax rate ultimately approved. So we have that back-end check on the reasonability of our local receipts, but it's not something that you all vote on as part of the budget process. So I think it's incumbent upon us to kind of self-regulate in that we have a reasonable way of doing this. So what that means is not undersell what we think local receipts are, so as to unnecessarily underinvest in necessary city expenditures, but then not oversell what we think they are and end up in a situation where year-end revenues don't meet original expectations. Some other policies in here, debt policy. So we go through here on lots of governing factors on what allows us to issue debt and what it's for. I think one important piece in this, and although this is an administrative document and one that I have authored, the ultimate authority on the term and type of borrowing is with the city treasurer. We have a finance team, the city auditor, city treasurer, the mayor, myself, and if the mayor wants to appoint anybody else with expertise in it, discuss how we're going to borrow, whether we go long-term, short-term, how much do we need to borrow to get through the end of the fiscal year. We have discussions and it's a really collaborative effort, but the ultimate authority on how much and how we borrow it and on what term lies with the city treasurer, not with the mayor. We had a lot of discussion during the budget session about debt service as a percentage of our budget. And again, debt service is different than debt. So this is what we pay in principal and interest each year. There's a line, the city will strive to keep net debt service, which is once we reduce out for enterprise funds, which are paid for by ratepayers, and excluded debt, which has its own funding source on the tax bill, between 3 and 3.5% of the original approved budget. I say original approved budget, we have all sorts of changes throughout the year. We have appropriations of free cash, we have supplemental in the fall, we have transfers back and forth, out into capital funds. So I think an easy way to do year-over-year comparison would be as a percentage of the originally approved budget, because that's what the budget's presented to you as, and I get to, write the commentary on that. That was developed, that threshold was developed, again, I can't say this enough, in draft form, through a couple of different ways, looking at some comparable communities, looking at what our historical debt service levels have been, discussions with the treasurer in ways that are in a level that she would be comfortable with as part of the finance team, which is higher than we're at right now. We're in the low 2%, the 2.3%, I think, as the originally approved budget. So this is to say, debt's a good thing for us in that we want those who derive the beneficial use of an asset to be those who pay for it over its useful life. And also, if we let debt service, if we keep it level as a dollar amount, we have $1 of debt service fall off and we put one more on, as a percentage of our budget, it will continue to get smaller. That money then gets eaten up, utilized for salaries, for service contracts, for other things within the budget. And then we end up in a position where we've underinvested in our physical plant. So I think it's important to us to peg it as a percentage, not as a dollar amount, and to continually keep that at the 3.5 level. So it was developed, like I said, between comparable communities, our historical trends with the city treasurer, and through some GFOA guidelines. I don't yet have a percentage policy for enterprise debt. City Auditor Deb Gould brought it up in our review of this, and I want to do a deeper dive into what's a reasonable expectation for the enterprise funds. It's going to be a heck of a lot higher than this. The enterprise funds are heavily capital intensive compared to other operations, so we're going to see orders of magnitude larger than that 3.5% for the general fund. I'll also add a short-term debt policy. We don't have one in here yet. I haven't discussed it with the treasurer, so I want to flesh that out a little bit more before I put that in draft form. I think one that's important as well, fee policy. So we have all sorts of fees, and this is something Councilor DeSimone has asked me about before. So my office is in the process of going through the ordinances and pulling out each fee that is set, when it was set, what it applies to, and we'll have a comprehensive list of fees. Unless it's set by state statute, municipal council is who sets fees. But it's unreasonable for you to think of every fee in the ordinance, as we're seeing there are quite a few, and decide when to review and what they should be. So it's incumbent upon the administration and departments to say to you, this fee hasn't been looked at in a while. We are out of step with our comparable communities. We're out of step with, well, you saw it last week with the solid waste. We're out of step with what the service actually costs us. So we impose these fees in instances where the service is not equitably supported through the existing tax and revenue structure. So like the tires, right? At the recycling center, the rate should not pay for those, and we were charging less than it cost us to get rid of the tires. So we needed to up that. That sort of review on that granular level done by department heads on an annual or biannual basis through the budget process. So any recommendations to change fees will come both in the fee section of the budget, which doesn't exist yet, but will also come through a formal request to council as a piece of business. And two more, stabilization fund policy. So this is multi-pronged. Right now we have 4 stabilization funds: the general purpose, special education, E-rate, and the sidewalk stabilization fund. It's a goal of Councilor Conti and shared by me of having a capital improvements stabilization fund, or at least a dedicated revenue source for capital improvements. So while that does not have a policy because it has not been adopted or implemented, that will be added to this at some point as well. Our general purpose stabilization fund policy will endeavor to have a year-end balance that equals 5% of the fiscal year's originally approved budget. We're not there yet, but we have continued to add to stabilization. The policy also gears us towards The same thing with debt service. If we just contribute the same $300,000 every year to stabilization, it's not going to grow with the pace of our budget. So the policy encourages the administration to keep stabilization contribution growth in line with growth of the general fund. Conversely, the Special Education Stabilization Fund, the mayor has set the short-term goal of $1 million in the fund to be replenished as it's used. So rather than continue, you saw in the fiscal 23 budget, we did not have a contribution to the Special Education Stabilization Fund because we were at that $1 million mark. So it is not our intent to continue to contribute to that, except to replenish after lawful uses of the fund. And that $1 million will have to be, that $1 million threshold will have to be revisited periodically. But now that it's 3-4 years old, however old the fund is now, and we haven't used it yet, the $1 million seems sufficient. And then lastly, our OPEB policy. So OPEB are other post-employment benefits, retiree healthcare costs that right now we pay for on a pay-as-you-go or a pay-go basis. As the necessary expenditure comes due in the given year, we pay it. The city has, since before my tenure, since fiscal 2017, began to contribute on an annual basis to an OPEB trust administered through the Plymouth County OPEB Trust. We contribute $100,000 from the general fund and $50,000 each from water and wastewater. I didn't put a threshold in here in terms of what we should contribute year over year, except the language similar to increase it yearly in proportion to at a minimum, increase it yearly in proportion to what the general fund or in the wastewater and water enterprise funds increase at. The liability is large. We are far from the only there are no municipalities for which this is not a problem. We have been proactive since fiscal 2017 in contributing, and I would like to see that happen even more aggressively. So this is another thing that's been indicated from the credit rating agency, or just the one that we go to, of something of note. When they talk about our unfunded pension liabilities, there's another sentence in there about our OPEB liability. So the fact that we're continuing to be proactive about this is important to me and the city, but also to the credit rating agencies. So that's where we're at right now with those, how many other, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 policies. I hope to add, flesh out a little bit more on revolving funds, both through the budget process and through a policy document like this. You all don't have great and regular insight into the revolving funds, apart from some of the big ones when we talk about zoo and solid waste, so I'd like to kind of increase that a little bit. And I will say that none of these were just, created from scratch, starting from nowhere. We looked at comparable communities. Councilor Conti shared his working draft after speaking with Laura and Deb. GFOA has a lot of great templates that the Government Finance Officers Association, that some of these have been taken from too. So it's not perfect. It's not a finished, polished document yet, but I'm proud where it's at now and what we've started here, and I'll keep you all abreast as we go along.
So my perspective is that I'm pleased to see progress, that the budget message is actually going to have an impact in the administration. I'll just add one point, is that councils are probably wondering, where's all the money going to come from for all these new stabilization contributions and OPEB profit compositions? The idea of developing a special stabilization fund for capital improvements can only work with a new stream of revenue. So we were fortunate, for example, recently when cannabis became legal, the city generated a new stream of revenue with cannabis sales. That's the kind of thing that we need to happen again for a special stabilization fund for capital improvements. If the idea is not to steal from something that we've already got, there's no room to steal, because we're trying to manage that debt policy, we're trying to manage the stabilization policy, the OPEB policy, so it's going to require a new stream, and we're just going to have to wait until that develops. I'm very, very pleased that you've taken this far, this fast, that because government is slow, and I'm delighted. So does any councilors have any questions? Councilor DeSimone and then Councilor Cobus.
Thank you, Chair Conti. First, I want to thank you and the auditor and the treasurer and Jeremy for all the hard work. I was someone who was very much pushing the policies, respecting completely the jurisdiction of the administration. But and I appreciate that all of this is within the administration's purview. But I think it sets an important message to residents and taxpayers that we are working together, that we have a plan, we're heading in the same direction. I think it's important that people know that. I also like these documents because they provide just some parameters to what we're trying to do here. So we're not re-arguing the same thing again and again, but we're all rowing in the same direction. So thank you all very much for your time and expertise on all of these. And I look forward to them further developing. Not to get too granular in terms of the fees, are you going to incorporate in the fee policy a cost study periodically? Because it's not just saying the fee should be X, right? It's determining how much it's actually costing us for the service. And I don't know the last time we've done a cost study in the city, but I would respectfully suggest that be on your agenda.
Yeah, so the fee policy as written doesn't include a cost study like that. If I can read in part, as part of the annual budget process, departments shall review the fees charged by their departments. The review shall consist of a comparison to both comparable and or surrounding communities, as well as a comparison of a particular fee amount compared to the cost of the associated service. The Director of Budget Administration shall assist in determining appropriate comparable communities. So I think it would be useful for the city to bring in an outside firm, not with regularity, but to give us a baseline at some point. I'm not promising that in this or next fiscal year, but the policy would be incumbent on departments to, and also with a degree of reasonability. If there's a fee we charge once every 4 years, I'm less concerned as opposed to the one we charge weekly. So it would be incumbent upon departments to review, at least in this first go round where they're not used to it. I would say pick your 3 biggest or 3 most common, 3 most frequent, and we'll discuss those now, and let's start to chip away at this project. So it's not going to be an overnight thing, but as written, it would be incumbent on the department heads.
Okay. I would just ask you to consider that at some point.
Certainly.
Thank you, Chair Conti.
Councilor Cobus.
Thank you, Councilor Conti. I have the obvious question of when can we get a draft copy of the document and would you be willing to hear some feedback? I get that it's a draft and that it's on the administration to draft this, but if you'd be willing to hear some early feedback, I would love to provide that before everything's sort of nailed down and finalized.
Yeah, I think there are a few more discussions I need to have with the auditor and treasurer in order to make sure that both of their comments have been incorporated sufficiently. But yeah, in October, I will share something.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions for the director? Thank you, sir, for being here.
Thank you very much.
Very pleased with the results.
If I may, thank you for saying that. I just wanted to touch on one other piece of the budget message, just because I'm up here. There's a line, increase the snow removal line to 200,000 up from the 94.5. I'm totally in support of that. So I don't know that it'll get to 200. I hope to get it to 200, but it will be substantially increased in the fiscal 24 budget and going forward to more accurately represent at least the minimum of what we can expect in a snow removal budget.
Finance team was pushing for that because one snowstorm, there goes your 200,000. So it's kind of a ridiculously low number. And thank you for pushing so hard for us to put that into the budget message because it needs to be done.
Yeah, it helps when our goals are aligned. So yes, that will be in.
And thank you, thank the auditor, thank the treasurer, thank all of you for putting the effort into this.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
So I have just 4 other items this evening. From the docket of October 4th, 2022, I entertain a motion to transfer $532.54 from account 11241-000-578300 Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to account 112-11000-578020 Mayor bills from previous year in order to pay the fiscal year 22 invoice to Murphy, S. Toomey, and Lane LLP.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Cobus. I got a copy of the invoice today, and the work was done June 1st and June 21st, and some of it was after the fiscal year change in August, so that's why the bill came in late. It's all for one particular appeal, and that's the way they bill it. So it's a bill that needs to be paid. What can I tell you? Any questions, comments? Motion's in order. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. From the docket of October 4th, 2022, I entertain a motion to authorize the Attleboro Public Schools to pay $1,605.35 for the following fiscal year 22 previous year fiscal obligations that were not received in time to be processed in the normal business cycle. The vendor is Balfour, A period, N period, D period, Scholastic, and there's 3 invoices of the amount of $11, one for $1,538.50, and one for $55.85.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Cobus. Mr. Furtado did an excellent job explaining what the invoices were for in his letter to the council. Does anyone have any questions? Seeing none, motion's in order. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. From the docket of October 4th, 2022, I entertain a motion to accept the $4,305,000 Bristol County ARPA allocation in the form of a grant pursuant to the terms and conditions of the grant agreement for the Lindsay Street Water Main Replacement Engineering Construction and Road Restoration Services. In addition, the council votes to approve the expenditure of such funds and any future grant amendments.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Cobus. In reading the supporting documents, this is a piece of a larger portion of the ARPA money. It's a wonderful gift from the federal government that will get Lindsay Street redone. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, motion's in order. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. From the docket of October 4th, 2022, the mayor respectfully requests the honorable body to hold a public hearing on Tuesday, October 18, 2022, for the purpose of setting a tax classification for fiscal year 2023. Additionally, and in order to assure that the city has sufficient time to prepare and mail the third quarter real estate tax bills by December 31st, 2022, the mayor further requests that your honorable body hold a meeting of the municipal council no later than Tuesday, November 1st, 2022, for the purpose of voting on the percentage of the local tax levy to be borne by such class of property for the fiscal year 2023.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Cobus. There's a lot of moving parts that go into this process, but the assessor is trying to move the date back, and it's beneficial to all parties involved to do that. Ideally, she's targeting September 15th. That's what we've done in Taunton. This year was the first year that we actually got it accomplished. So I'll actually be here for the tax classification hearing this year. I'm looking forward to that. Following the tax classification, when we set the tax rate, then the supplemental budget can be finalized and everything goes together. So this is a very positive thing, and I encourage all councils to support it. Is there any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes unanimously. And that concludes the business that the Finance Committee has to bring before the committee tonight. And I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I declare the Finance Committee adjourned at 7:28. Thank you.
And the License Committee will open at 7:28. And we don't have any motions this evening. I'm anticipating a motion on October 4th, our next meeting, to address the request by Nabil Nakul, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, for a beer wine license for his establishment at 40 Emery Street. There is no opening for licenses at this point in time. However, the license board has met with Mr. Nakul June 29th, and they are in support of pursuing the possibility of going to the state legislature for a license. And I just heard today that there may be a loophole whereby there could be extra licenses in certain cities that are in zones. And that has happened in Boston recently, where about a dozen new licenses went above and beyond their limit downtown And so there's precedent for that. And so we are not above our limit. But, so his establishment, I believe, opened around the 1st of June at Emery Convenience Store. And I spoke today to Dave Wood, who's the chair of the licensing board in Attleboro. And he and his board were in favor of pursuing this. And so I have invited both Mr. Nakul and Mr. Wood to our meeting at 6:30 next week, October 4th, 2 weeks. Are there any questions? Well, I'll take Councilor DeSimone and Councilor Blair next.
So I do have comments and concerns, but I'm hesitant to venture down that road without the motion before us. So I guess I'm going to hold off until I see what your motion is.
The motion will be out in 2 weeks.
So I guess my comments will be more appropriate in the context of a motion. So I'll wait till the next committee meeting then.
Okay, Councilor Blair.
Mr. Waterman, this city has always had a limit on your liquor licenses. Many times in the past, we've had good applicants that have been turned down and been put on a waiting list. Does that list still survive? Is there a waiting list?
Not that I am aware of, but I don't know that for certainty.
I would check on that because I think it would be an injustice to issue a license where people have been put on a waiting list. If there's a list there,
Right.
then that's how it should work.
I agree.
That's how it's worked in the past, Ty. You know, people have applied to the liquor board and they've been put on a list. And unless you're gonna increase that number so we can have an Attleboro, I think you ought to be cautious of that list that was out there.
Absolutely. I will check that out. Thank you.
Okay.
Councilor Angelo.
I'm not aware of any list, but maybe Dave Wood would know.
Well, I'm just,
Yeah, and it's certainly a good point. I've been to his store. It's really clean. He's done a good job. He's in the Culls Office Supply place. He gets a lot of walk-ins to his area, to his store, asking for, if they would, be able to sell, beer and liquor at some point. And it's been a lot of favorable people asking for that. And not knowing about any list or anything, I would certainly would support it. And it seems like he's done a great job over there and is very willing to do what he can do within the city to help out. That's all I have.
Are there any other questions at this time?
Can you tell me again who's coming to speak?
Dave Wood, the chair of the licensing board. And I'm going to make sure I get his name absolutely correct.
The applicant.
Right.
Yeah, I have it here.
Not cool.
I thought it was Nabil. I could be wrong, but I
It
thought
is.
thought it was
Nabil.
Nabil. Yeah, okay.
Correct. And are there any other concerns, questions right now? We'll come back to this in 2 weeks at 6:30. So I would make a motion for us to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are now adjourned at 7:32.
I'll call Transportation and Traffic Committee to order at 7:32. Present this evening, myself and Councilors Dolan and DeSimone. Got a few items for this evening, continuing with the building safety for Rathbone Willard Drive and sort of some of the theme that we've heard this evening. I'd like to start with that motion first. From the docket of April 19th, 2022, I entertain a motion to approve the following ordinance change in section 10-5, parking, 10-5.2A, prohibited on certain streets as it pertains to the reopening of Rathbone Willard Drive from Thatcher Street to Rome Boulevard. This would be to delete Rathbone Willard Drive easterly and westerly from 570 feet northerly of Thatcher Street to 720 feet northerly of Thatcher Street, and insert Rathbone Willard Drive entirely easterly side northerly from Thatcher Street to Rome Boulevard, and Rathbone Willard Drive westerly side from Thatcher Street 430 feet northerly and westerly side, 1,400 feet northerly of Thatcher Street to Rome Boulevard.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. In your materials, you have a map that was provided from our DPW superintendent, Mike Tyler. This shows a bolded area on the first page that will illustrate where the no parking zones would be after the ordinance change. Some of the safety concerns that have been raised are that with the new high school in session now and fully open, there may be students crossing in between cars where they're parked, making it difficult for oncoming traffic to see the students. There's also some concerns about the ability of vehicles, particularly fire trucks, ambulances, to get through if both sides have parking on them, particularly at the corner when you're coming from the Rome Boulevard side and heading up that way. It's a little bit narrower than the remainder of the road. I did have some concerns initially with the proposed no parking zone areas because knowing that Studley has sort of limited parking, I wondered what the impact would be to that school if they hold events. And one of my other concerns was with the high school parking not being fully constructed yet, were we going to run into potential problems where there is nowhere to park? So I did reach out to Mr. Mark Hool, athletic director, to find out what the impact would be to things like games and what they would do for parking for those things. And unfortunately, I have not heard back or gotten a response on that. I do anticipate that might be an issue if anyone's been down there on a Friday night recently when there's a home game. The parking is both sides of the road all the way down. I anticipate people are probably parking at the Brennan lot too, wherever they can. But these games can be very popular, and with some big games coming up, some big home games, particularly Thanksgiving game I know is a big one, we may run into some issues where people may not have adequate parking for this, or may have to park very far from the field. But as of right now, I think the safety considerations and the safety concerns are really the most important to consider. And we really want to make sure that visibility is good and we don't have kids potentially crossing from one of these schools over to the other side. Even if they're in a crosswalk, but if there's parking allowed, it may limit the visibility of seeing those children stepping off into the road. And are there any questions or comments? Yes.
Two.
Councilor DeSimone.
First of all, on the map here,
Yes.
I just want to make sure. So there's an opening, right? There's a part there to which this doesn't apply. My first question is, what is that for?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know. I don't have any of the background in terms of why they chose the areas that they did.
Okay.
That's the side that's closest to the field.
Right.
And maybe it is to accommodate some of that athletic traffic. It would
Okay.
be limited to one side. And for that stretch of road, and I went down to look at it, I'm down in that area quite a bit, and I did look and evaluated sort of the width of the road. It appears to be much wider for that stretch. After the residences, from there all the way past the farthest Studley, sort of the entrance to pull into the circle, that's a much wider stretch of road. It does narrow going into that next part, and then all the way through to the traffic circle, so past Brennan, down to where the traffic circle will be, is a much narrower stretch of road.
And my second question is, this is a 24/7 ban. It seems to me to be excessive in light of the need of public safety. I know when Councilor Blair and I did the street over near Feehan, we limited traffic parking on one side of the road. I'm going to suggest that maybe that we can shrink the window here. I don't know why it needs to be 24/7, frankly. So maybe school hours or something to that effect. It seems like the cure is worse than the disease, in my opinion. So
Yeah, so I've thought a little bit about that because I was inclined to agree that a 24/7 ban seemed a bit much. That maybe there was a way we could limit it to one side or limit it to certain hours. But I think the concern is that school events and practices can be happening at really any time after school hours. So limiting it to no parking during school hours really doesn't address the safety concerns. Weekends, maybe there's fewer events, I don't know. But I certainly wouldn't want to be the one to, tell the police chief that, hey, you didn't think about these things, then I don't think we should do this. Really, it's coming from Chief Hegney and Chief LaChance that this is a critical safety issue, particularly from Chief Hegney. and that we really need to make sure that the kids at these 3 schools concentrated in this one area are really safe, whether they're there on the weekends playing at the Studley Playground, or if they're there for athletic events at the high school, or maybe participating in events over at Brennan on the weekends or evenings. We want to make sure that they have safe passage. I think my greatest concern right now is that the high school lot is not fully constructed. We have limited parking. And so my bigger concern isn't so much that it's a total ban, but it's a total ban in light of not having any alternative.
Mayor, just to be clear, so just for the record, both chiefs support this as proposed?
As far as I'm aware, yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yes. Councilor Blair.
Answer Councilor DeSimone's question. I talked to the chief today, the police chief, and he's very much in favor of this. He thinks it's a real safety hazard. In fact, he's had the signs put up under his ability to have temporary signs put up, because he feels that strongly about the safety for the children on that street. And like you said, once the high school gets open and you've got parking, that's going to alleviate a lot when it comes to sporting events and whatnot. But Chief Hagney was really adamant about this being a real safety issue. So I tend to go with the experts.
Yes, Councilor Angelo.
And maybe I missed this, but as it stands right now, is there enough parking for everybody if there is no parking on the street?
That's a good question. It depends on the event and I think the demand. I know Brennan has a much larger lot than Studley does, and there is some parking at the high school. Aside from, I guess it depends on the event and how many people they're expecting. But I think that the schools, it's incumbent on the schools to communicate clearly with people that may be in attendance for these events where they're allowed to park, and understanding that people may be inconvenienced with having to park a little bit further away. I think it's a small price to pay to ensure safety for the students on this stretch.
But are you just, would we be creating another, we getting rid of one safety issue, creating another one if some kids have to walk a long distance and possibly chance getting hit by a car if they're walking along just to get to the school? Are we just gonna be, careful of that too as well?
No, I don't think so. And I think to address that question, if there's no parking on the street, the safety concerns are a little bit alleviated there, right? Because we have the crosswalk. So as long as the students or the participants or the attendees are crossing in those designated crosswalk areas, visibility should be fine, and the car should be traveling at a safe speed. We really, it's on the drivers to make sure that they are adhering to the law and traveling at a safe designated speed on those school roads. Yes, Councilor Dolan.
So I definitely think that we need to increase safety measures because clearly this road is going to be used quite a bit now that with the changes that we've made. The only thing I'm concerned about is the beginning of Rathburn Willett off 123. Like on the left side and the right side, aren't those all houses? So these folks are not going to be able to park on the street. So
That's
if they
right.
have Christmas.
Yeah, so that is a bit challenging. If you've been in this area, when you turn, that's where the new light is. When you turn there's now 3 lanes effectively. So it's not the 2 lanes that it was with a little bit of space for parking now. It is a turn lane to turn left onto 123 at the light.
Yeah.
There's a right lane now that goes right up just about to the sidewalk to turn right, and then there's the lane for coming onto Rathburn Willett Drive. So there really isn't any space to park there without potentially blocking a lane of traffic with the new configuration.
All right, thank you.
Certainly. Yes, Councilor Kobus.
Thank you, Councilor Bennett. I've been driving there a lot recently. My son attended a football game Friday night a couple Fridays ago, and when I went back to pick him up, it was a mess. It was horrible, and I ended up driving down to Brennan and then came out and had parked on the side of the road there. He met me over by Brennan. But as I picked him and his friend up, we came out from Brennan and went to take a left. And there was a car that tried to go, there was another car waiting to try to take a left into Brennan. Someone tried to fly around them and almost T-boned us as we were taking a left. And I 100% agree that it's incredibly dangerous, especially during football games on Friday nights. But I also have to pick my son up after sports practice, and that's where everybody parks. There isn't an alternative for parents picking kids up. And so if all of a sudden we ban parking on this entire street without having an alternative, I don't know that that's a great answer either. Maybe a potential alternative in the near term is to have a police detail during football games. But I would encourage whoever seconded this to potentially rescind their second until we can hear back from Mark Hool to understand if he has a planned alternative for sports events and parents picking up kids. But I agree. It's tough because I 100% agree that it is incredibly dangerous to the kids, and I've seen that. But also, I have no idea where I would park to pick my kids up. So like I don't know what the right answer is, but I don't think this is the answer right now, and I encourage whoever seconded that to rescind their second. That's my
Councilor
comments.
Holmes?
Thank you. So this will not impact the Studley parent pickup?
No, it will not. And I say this because when parents are picking up and they're lining up orderly. They're going in through Brennan, they're coming back out through that lot, and they're in their vehicles. So while they may turn their vehicles off while they're waiting for their child, if there is an emergency situation, they're in the vehicle and they can move the vehicle. I think that's the differentiator here. If you're doing a quick pickup or drop off, it's different from being parked and not being in your vehicle, where you can't be notified if there's an issue.
I do like what Councilor DeSimone had mentioned about potentially not 24, maybe school hours or limiting it in that way. But I also do think that we need to have something in place for event parking this season. We need to have some, where are people going for these events? What's the expectation? Are we directing them towards Brennan? Are we have to really think about that before we just kind of block off this road, I feel.
That's right. Councilor Blair?
I do think that your questions, Todd, should be directed at the police chief, not a coach at the high school.
That's fair.
You know, he's the one that has the knowledge about traffic, parking, safety for the kids. And I know he was very, very concerned about it today. I called him for another reason, and he asked me to let him know what was happening. I talked to Kelly, and Kelly says it's coming out tonight. So I know he's really concerned on the safety. So if it's a little inconvenience for the next few months till the high school lot gets open, I think the safety for the kids is our first concern. There's a lot of land up there. If you look at this picture, if the high school didn't plan for enough parking, shame on them. But there is some land to expand parking for sporting events. So.
Councilor Brown.
Oh, Councilor Holmes.
Thank you. So I'm not worried about inconveniencing people, but if there's just no parking, you know, it's a problem. I mean, it's not about people walking too far, but where are we directing people? We have to have a solution here. So this, to me, just feels like we're saying, don't do it, but what's the expectation then, I guess? So that's a concern of mine.
For a little bit of context too, the signs are up. The no parking signs are up. They're not, from what I can tell, being enforced. So the last couple of weeks, I've driven over there a number of times. I see cars parked right in front of the no parking signs, and there doesn't seem to be any concern about tickets.
Yeah.
Yes, Councilor.
Chair Bennett, if you would like, I will withdraw my second because I would certainly like to speak to the chief about the issues, either
Did
personally.
I second that? I think I seconded.
Oh, did you
that.
second it? Thought it was
Yes.
me.
I think I did.
I think you did too.
Okay, my apologies.
That's okay. Would you like to rescind?
If you'd like me to, you're the chair. I will if that's what you want to do. I will rescind it.
As much as I'd like to see this move forward, I agree with the sentiment here tonight that I think there's a lot of information that we still need to parse out, and I think that the concerns of the council are valid here.
Worst case, you can have a quick meeting next
Absolutely.
week.
I'll keep trying to push for information. Councilor Kovas?
Chair Bennett, one thing that, when this comes back, some additional information for us, if we could know when the new parking is expected to open, I believe it's by the end of October, but like if we could get a definitive data on where that is.
Certainly.
That'd be useful.
Okay, so I'll withdraw my second.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? Yes, Councilor Blair?
Just one comment. Those signs were put up at the direction of the police chief, which he has the authority to do.
Yes, but the motion here this evening, just to clarify, is to amend the ordinance.
Yeah.
And
okay.
so that's within the purview of the council to do, and if we are going to hold off on doing that to get more information, I'm comfortable with that. Thank you. From the docket of September 20th, 2022, I entertain a motion to change the public hearing date to October 18th, 2022, in place of October 4th, 2022, to restrict parking to one side of Frank Mossberg Drive.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Dolan. So this and the next motion as well, same comment. By the time that the vote at the council was certified, there was not enough time. There was some delay. There was not enough time for us to advertise for the 12 days that it needs to be in the Chronicle for the public hearing. So this is just moving it out a couple of weeks to make sure that we have adequate time. And I'm also working with some residents in that area that are interested in coming out for this one and the next motion in particular. They'd like to come out and give us some information about what they see. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. From the docket of September 20th, 2022, I entertain a motion to change the public hearing date to October 18th, 2022, in place of October 4th, 2022, to amend Section 10-4.11 of the revised ordinances, isolated stop signs, by adding eastbound drivers on Jefferson Street at 5th Street.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Dolan. Same comment as before. Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. That concludes the business of Transportation and Traffic Committee for this evening. I move to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned at 7:50.
IT and Infrastructure Committee is canceled for tonight.
Zoning and land use committee is canceled this evening.
City property and claims canceled this evening. Oh, I guess it's me, sorry. All right then. I'd like to call the Ordinances, Elections, and Legislative Matters Committee to order at 7:51. With me this evening are Councilors Bennett and Holmes, and I have just 4 items. I don't think they'll take long. So, first, from the docket of October 4th, 2022, I entertain a motion to hold a public hearing on November 1st for the proposed amendments to Chapter 17 zoning concerning the commercial vehicle.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Holmes. So, as you may recall, this has been around for a while. We had a little bit of a snafu when the planning board sent its vote in, so we're reintroducing it. This is the partner to what the changes we recently made to Chapter 10 concerning the definition of commercial vehicles. So, we're going to have a public hearing, then we can discuss after, but that's why it's back.
What was the date?
On November 1st.
Thank you.
So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. All right. Next up, I'm going to move to page 20 concerning, on the bottom of page 20, from the docket of September 6, 2022, I entertain a motion to approve the following ordinance change regarding solid waste, particularly pertaining to 7-8.1 and 7-8.3.
Second.
Second, thank you, Councilor Holmes. These are the changes that Cheryl Perry spoke about last week. And there's a lot of language in there, but primarily it pertains to adding fees for the tire disposal, from trucks, fire extinguishers, the mattresses, you may recall, things that they hadn't been charging for at all, and now Cheryl's just looking to recoup the cost of receiving them. So I think it's more than fair. Comments, questions, concerns? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes, thank you. Next up, on page 26, for discussion purposes only, and Councilor Bennett, I don't know if you want to recuse, we're going to talk about marijuana amendments.
Thank you.
So, Councilor Holmes, I gave you a copy of some thoughts I have about the business, and I can share those with our colleagues. I'm not going to vote on this until the planning board, we get their decision, just to respect that body, but I wanted to just give the committee some idea of where I'm at. I think there's a lot of moving parts here and things to consider, at least from my perspective. And I know I just dropped those on you, so I don't expect you to have comments, but if you have similar or other concerns you want to bring to the next committee meeting, please do so, but I think there's a lot of things to chew on here.
I think it looks great. I mean, this was addressing a lot of the concerns that
Good.
people spoke about the public hearing, so I think it's
Okay.
helpful.
All right, and I'll share that with everybody else immediately after the meeting. Then you agree that we'll wait till the planning board vote comes in to continue the conversation?
so, yes.
Okay, awesome. All right, thank you. And then lastly, Council Holmes, on page 28. This is old business. This pertains to the deferral of deferrals granted for taxes assessed. This pertains to the property taxes deferred by seniors, and in particular, if they defer a utility lien. You may recall that the water superintendent spoke about the water betterments and amending the ordinances that was required to go along with this request to waive, to adopt the Massachusetts general laws to affect the changes that the finance team recommends to make the changes that we passed in December effective. And if you need, I have the memo as backup from them when it came down in January. But what we're doing here is just finishing business that was recommended by the finance team to fulfill the vote that we took back in December regarding assisting our senior populations with their property taxes and deferring utility charges and any liens. That sound somewhat familiar? Okay, fairly straightforward then. All right, so then on that note, on page 28, I don't know why there's a hold there, but from the docket of February 15th, 2022, I entertain a motion to adopt Mass General Laws, Chapter 40, Sections 42G to 42I, and Section 42K to enhance the votes from December 17th, 2019 regarding the deferral of taxes for eligible seniors.
Second.
Any other comments, questions, or concerns? Councilor Holmes or Councilor Bennett, forgive me?
Oh,
No, thank you.
pardon me. Is there a public hearing on the 18th of?
We already,
Oh, there's one.
Yes, this is different from,
I'm sorry, am I seeing that correctly?
yeah, no, you are. All right, forgive me. I'm pretty sure I thought we already had the public hearing. Then, I withdraw my motion. Will you withdraw your second?
Yes.
Because perhaps I am misremembering. If this has been lingering around for a while. So to err on the side of caution, I'm going to withdraw the motion, leave that alone, and I apologize. I'll take that up after the 18th to see where we are there. Okay, having said that, that's all the business I have for this evening, so I'd entertain a motion to adjourn at 7:57.
Second?
Thank you, Councilor Holmes. All those in favor?
aye.
Thank you very much. Aye.
Thank you. Reporting for Public Safety Emergency Management, I have one motion I'd like to bring forward this evening. From the docket of October 4th, 2022, I entertain a motion to transfer $5,989.78 from account 112410000-578300, Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to account 122010000-530101, Fire Professional Services, to replenish funds used to dispose of the remaining inventory of PFAS firefighting foam.
Second.
I talked with the chief on this, and it's roughly 19 5-gallon pails. All your fire departments throughout the state are turning it back in or getting rid of it. It's hazardous waste. And you know, anything with hazardous waste, the price is up here somewhere when you go to get rid of it. And the reason for getting rid of it is if you use that on private property, there's a chance of contaminating that property, and it opens the city up to be liable for a suit. Any other questions or comments? If you do any questions, I can get them answered by next week, but it's pretty straightforward.
No questions from me, thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Move to adjourn at 8 o'clock.
Second.
All in
Special committee
favor?
for tax abatement review is canceled.
Aye.
You didn't have, said the special committee for tax abatement review is canceled.
Okay, I call to order special committee on classification and compensation at time of 8 o'clock. Members of this committee, Councilor DeSimone and Councilor Vice President Kovas. From the docket of September 20th, 2022, to create an Attleboro Municipal Council Special Committee on classification and compensation with the focus to better understand current hiring challenges facing the city of Attleboro, with the end result being to ensure the effective, efficient, and high-quality delivery of city services through ensuring Attleboro is competitive in classification and compensation with surrounding communities. As part of this committee, the Personnel Director shall be asked to provide a report to the council about the current compensation and classification plan, the number and nature of current positions, vacancies, and length of vacancies, projected retirements within the next year, recruitment strategies to fill the current and future openings.
Second.
Motion's in order. So obviously this is brand new. We're going to get Owen Bebo, we'll get him down here, and we'll get him helping us with this and get this started. And hopefully this will sort of sort of help recognizing why some people are leaving, some people are coming. Are we paying too little? Are we paying too much? And get a lot of other questions answered to make Attleboro a better place to work. Any questions, Vice President Kobus?
And first of all, I think this committee is great, and I think this new business that Councilor DeSimone and President Delicio introduced is great. My question is just with this motion, I don't think we necessarily need this motion. We have the committee, we're on the committee now, so I think we can discharge this, not as opposed to voting it out. I don't
Okay.
think there's really anything to vote out.
Okay. All right. Councilor Conti.
So, Counselor, I'd just like to add that there's a very important financial component to this committee's activity. And I want you to underline that, so that when the Personnel Director develops a plan, that the financial component is included in the plan. And that concludes my comment.
Thank you, Councilor Conti. Councilor DeSimone.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mike. I just had a thought. Oh, two things, if I may. Number one, I know it says report. I would like to respectfully ask that the HR director come down and make more of a presentation. Like, I really want to get information. So if that's within our, ability to do that, kind of a presentation.
Exactly.
And secondly, I did not include, but I'd like to add, what are the efforts of the city to diversify the staff? Are we recruiting among a diverse population? I don't know what we're doing in that regard. I have reached out with a question to that effect before, but if we could add that to the list of information you might provide, I think that's an important question.
Okay. Councilor Blair.
We're definitely having a problem attracting skilled personnel. The salaries for skilled personnel in all departments is so low that you don't get applicants. And the applicants you get for these positions aren't qualified. So there's definitely a need for this. We've got to look at what we need to pay to get qualified personnel in these skilled departments, skilled areas. That's why we're losing them. They're moving on to some of them are moving on either back into private employment, or they're moving to other towns for $5, $6, $7 an hour more. And in these times, these people need that money to support their families. You can't blame them for moving. I think we're underpaying, especially in skilled positions.
Yeah. I mean, maybe also cross-training as well, so certain departments are gonna have, I mean, in my world, there's cross-training for everything, because each department is gonna be busy at different times, and so the more people that are valuable to us can work here when this is, and then they can work at this place, and they can keep moving, and that's gonna be really important. And hopefully, I'll have that, Owen, to see if there's a plan for that as well, too. I think that's very important for any business or any city to work with. Any other questions, Councilor Waterman?
So I agree entirely with what you say about the economic component. I do. We also have a service component. We need to keep up with what the city needs. And the city's grown a lot. It's grown by something like 4,500 people in the last 10 years. And each department has come, most of the departments over the last 3 or 4 years have come to us and said, we're not able to keep up with the business that we're being asked to do. And so we need to find out where they've grown in their, what they're asked to do. And we just saw that in the elections, and I suspect we would see pieces of that in almost every department.
Okay. All right, any other questions, comments, concerns? All right, seeing none, well, we're not voting on this, so we can just call to adjourn at, do we have to, all those in favor? Do
Do we want to rescind the second?
in a second?
Sure, I'll rescind my second.
Okay.
And Mike, you're going to email Owen at some point in the near future to
Absolutely.
get
Actually, I'm
this
gonna,
ball rolling?
I was gonna say I was gonna go and talk to him tomorrow, but I'll be out of town, so, yeah, I will email him and get him, so we can start the discussions.
Okay, awesome,
All
thank
right.
you.
Thank you. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, we are adjourned at 8:06.
That's it.
That's it. Thank you. Okay.